Survivor has always been divided into two phases of the game since the very beginning, the pre-merge and the post-merge. The pre-merge is where you are on a set number of tribes competing against the other tribe with your tribe mates. Lose a challenge, you go to tribal council, you gotta vote one of your tribe mates off. The post-merge is where all of the tribes come together to form one group, where it's every person for themselves until the end of the game. That is Survivor in a nutshell, and I'm sure if you ask 99% of people which part of the game they say is the most important, they would say the post-merge, obviously. However, we're not going to focus on the post-merge at all today. Instead, I'm here to focus on the specific players I feel played the best pre-merge games of Survivor in its history. And the pre-merge is such a fun concept because while I feel the main difference between the pre-merge and the post-merge of Survivor is that you can't win the game in the pre-merge, but you can certainly lose it. And that is what I'm here to find out. Who are the people who quote-unquote won the pre-merge game of Survivor, and how did they fare later into the game? Is there success that comes with being great in the pre-merge, or is it a lot of random luck? That's what I'm here to find out. Shout out Drew Basile from Survivor 45. I did see a tweet of him talking about this exact topic, and it's such a fun idea that I decided to look into it myself and turn it into a video. But when I do say best pre-merge games, that can mean a few things, because I think people's definitions of best can vary. Not many people are going to have the same Survivor winner rankings simply because there isn't an objective way to look at Survivor and what makes the best game. And that is the same thing for me here. Is it more impressive to survive more tribal councils or have complete dominance over the tribe? Is it better to face adversity and overcome it, or never be in danger once? All of these questions I will be answering in my personal opinion, but that doesn't mean I'm right or this ranking is right. So many people can have a very different list if they thought about it, and I wouldn't say they were right or wrong. So that's my way of saying, don't hate me on this for having certain opinions about certain players, because I know people aren't going to agree with this list. That's totally fine. In the end, I created a top 10 of the players I felt played the best pre-merge games in all of Survivor. This list is a little crazy. Hopefully my justifications will be enough to not get a mob of people to attack me. And again, anything you disagree with, please let me know in the comments below, in a respectful way of course. And while you're down there, consider liking the video and subscribing if you do enjoy. It's easy as hell, and you'd be totally awesome if you did that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break down the best pre-merge games that have ever been played in Survivor history. I know I'm a dickhead for this, but I gotta talk about some honorable mentions who just missed the cut to be on the list. Like, as if this dude doesn't get enough credit, it needs to be known, Boston Rob's Redemption Island game is terrifyingly good. He went from 3 to 4 people on his tribe being against him to converting one of them to be his most loyal soldier, and then picking off the rest of the ones that weren't loyal to him. I think we all know this game was fucking ridiculous, but it's also a boring pick, so I left it off the top 10. What you gonna do? The next guy I really wanted on the list because I think it's completely deserving of a spot, that's Jim Rice from Survivor South Pacific. This dude was running Savai'i from minute 1. He had the majority alliance set up for himself, as well as being most of the people in that majority alliance's number ones. Pair that with being a strong member of the tribe, this dude was never getting voted out. So realistically, I do think Jim Rice is top 10. The reason he's off the list though is because honestly, I kind of really wanted to talk about my number 9 and 10 players more than Jim, and somebody else on the top 10 is also from Jim's season, and I think they had a better game, so sorry Jim. And then a couple of new era players I wanted to shout out were Romeo from Survivor 42 because he did have a chokehold on that Ika tribe from all angles. Even the people sent home in Zach and Swati had Romeo as their number ones. And then Carson from Survivor 44 was also in a dominant position. He had Tika set up for him to go in whatever direction he wanted, and then swap to a whole new tribe by himself and was still never in danger of going home. But he didn't exactly have control on that tribe. I think Matthew still would have gone home, a close ally to Carson, so that's kind of what left Carson off the list. But shout out to both of them for having really strong games in the new era, which in the new era is mostly just about surviving as opposed to dominating. Cool, it's top 10 time. Starting the top 10, we have a very interesting figure in Survivor history, the only person on this list who was actually voted out in the pre-merge. How in the hell is he a top 10 choice if he got voted out? Well, If you know who the hell I'm talking about, I'm sure you would understand the selection because it's Marcus Lehman from Survivor Gabon. See, now does this make a bit more sense? This dude is arguably the best player on Survivor Gabon, and all of his game was in the pre-merge because he didn't actually make it to the merge. But the body of work speaks for itself. The Onion Alliance made Marcus the single safest person in the entire game for a lot of it. He had a group of people that would die for Marcus. Charlie, Corinne, and Jackie willing to get themselves voted out if it meant Marcus would stay in the game longer. That's total dominance. Moving to the first swap, Marcus continued that complete domination, replacing Jackie with Randy due to the swap, and literally nothing else changed. They won most of the challenges, and he had an army of people by his side. And nobody I'm talking about on this list has had that type of control that Marcus had on these pre-merge tribes. However, there's an elephant in the room. The reason Marcus is not higher on the list is because of the second swap, which I will say on a game level is literal bullshit. It was already a long ass pre-merge. They had a whole merge feast and then they just divided themselves into tribes again, and Marcus simply gets swap screwed. But I think the way that most pre-merges go, Marcus could have a case to be number one if he simply didn't get unlucky that second swap. You don't see one person literally become the main character by simply existing. He might have gotten voted out, but there was dominance on levels we've never seen before and have never seen since, and I simply can't ignore that. He has to be top 10 because of these facts, but just barely top 10 because he obviously got voted out. Number 9 is another funky pick, one that didn't make it to the merge either. However, this guy wasn't voted out, and I feel if the circumstance that happened to him didn't happen, like Marcus, this could be a top 5 pre-merge game of all time. And that is my man Russell Swan from Survivor Samoa. Yes, the medevac was terrifying and such an unfortunate situation for him. He's genuinely one of the unluckiest players in Survivor history. Ooh, wait, that's a fun video idea. Anyways. I think that situation can be excused much more than Marcus's second swap screw. So let's look at what Russ Swan did before that moment. Being elected tribe leader, he took that role to heart and led such a dominant tribe. A tribe that felt connected and felt unstoppable. No, Russ Swan wasn't strategically dominating this tribe like most of the other players on this list, but Galoo before the medevac was one of the greatest tribes in Survivor history, and I give a majority of that credit to Russell Swan. And while we're at it, I don't think it's a coincidence that once Russ Swan left the game, that tribe crumbled. Most of the times, I'm not going to use actions that happened in the post-merge as reasonings for having players higher or lower, but this needs to be an exception because the proof is in the pudding. He was the glue to one of the greatest pre-merge tribes in Survivor history. That has to count for something, and that something for me is a top 10 spot on this list. I only have 2 New Era player spots on this top 10, and one of them will arrive here at number 8. I think a big reason the New Era doesn't have much representation is because the pre-merge in the New Era is the definition of survive and advance. Nobody gives a literal damn about what you do in the pre-merge. You just need to make it to the merge and you have a chance moving forward. But the 2 players I have here played damn good in the pre-merge. The lesser of the 2 being Austin Lee Kuhn from Survivor 45. This dude not only was safe at every possible turn, but got his way every possible turn as well, and that was what was so impressive for him. Part of that can be attributed to being jacked as shit because, like, look at him. But you can't sleep on how socially dominant Austin was. Not only did he have the connection with the Reba 4, not only did he have his ride or die in Drew, that alone is impressive on the Reba tribe and shows complete dominance of that tribe. But the most impressive part of his game is in the swap. He goes on a journey and Drew is alone with Brando, Kendra, and Emily. Emily is the swing vote that's needed there. And all day at camp, Drew has been digging a hole for himself, and Brando and Kendra have Emily on their side against Drew, which is worst case scenario for Austin. But Austin returns from the journey at the end of the day and single-handedly convinces Emily to flip back to vote with himself and Drew against Brando. That right there is the type of power and control Austin had in the pre-merge, and it's genuinely so impressive to see. Out of everybody in the New Era, aside from one person, this is the most dominant somebody in the New Era has been. So it's number 8. On to number 7, and remember when I said Jim Rice didn't make the top 10 partially because somebody else on this season I think played a better game? This is that guy, and it's fucking Coach Wade, of all people, from Survivor South Pacific. This is not the most fun pre-merge game of all time to talk about. Actually, it's most definitely the least fun pre-merge game I will be talking about. But I can't deny the power and control Coach gained. From being infamously called a temporary player before even entering the game, to creating a majority alliance on night 1 that would run the entire game, but especially the pre-merge, and taking out all of those people who were most threatening to Coach, and specifically Coach. And obviously, the most notable part of this entire alliance was the heavy focus on religion that encompassed the group, more like a cult and less like an alliance. And it's a little icky to say because religion is definitely a sensitive topic for a lot of people, but that cult-like mentality was so much more powerful than a regular alliance would be because nobody was turning on that group. Some may argue Sophie should be here instead of Coach because she was faking the devotion to religion and devotion to the alliance. But I think when I'm looking at just the pre-merge game, Coach was the ringleader. He was leading the prayer circles, he had every other member of his alliance coming to him first for all of their information, and in my opinion, that's a better pre-merge game than what Sophie did. You can agree or disagree with the tactics Coach used, but you can't argue that it worked damn well and it deserves a top 10 spot. Now we move into the top 6, slowly but surely getting there, and we got another person to talk about. This guy from the Middle Ages Survivor, specifically Survivor Tocantins, and specifically that dude Stephen Fishbach. People sleep on how dominant of an early game Stephen Fishbach played. He was running Jalapao from minute 1 to the tribes being merged, and then some. The biggest sticking point is obviously his connection with JT, one of the more iconic alliances as they connected, and Stephen benefited tremendously by aligning with the most liked guy on the tribe. He was JT's number 1, but was also Taj's number 1, to the extent that she brought him in on the Exile Alliance, where he became tightly aligned and trusted with 2 people on the other tribe. He was aligned with the 2 most influential players on the tribe, and he was the one influencing them. So Stephen truly had all the power on Jalapao, paired with his connection and alliance with Sierra and Brendan. It's insanely impressive and goes underreported in Survivor history. But it's only number 6 because this top 5 is so damn strong. It's like pulling teeth trying to differentiate these players. Getting on this list in general is impressive, but when I tell you these top 5 are insane, they are insane. So let's keep moving. Top 5, baby, and at number 5 is what I feel like would be one of the first names you mention when talking about the best pre-merge games, but I have my justification for why she isn't as high on the list, and that is Denise Stapley from Survivor Philippines. Yep, that's the woman who has been to every single tribal council in her season, so obviously she went to every single tribal council in the pre-merge, and survived. So that in itself means enough for me to get her on this list. She started on a 6-person tribe and got down to 2 players without being in danger once, thanks to her alliance with Malcolm. And then gets swapped onto a whole new tribe by herself, and then survives while again not being in much danger at all. So that resume right there is fantastic, and obviously is the main sticking point as to why she's in the top 5. The reason she isn't higher, unfortunately, is because I feel like she didn't have more outright control of the tribe. Yes, she was on the right side of the numbers every single vote, but every single vote was also a unanimous vote. No matter what you say, a unanimous vote is very, very hard to give credit to a singular person. Yes, she was the core Mat Singh, and yes, she survived the 6-1 numbers disadvantage on Calabao, but I don't think she had the full dominance or control of that tribe, where I feel the people higher on this list did. And that is what I value more when looking at the best pre-merge games. It's incredibly impressive and a really great game played, but the level of dominance or control, especially on Calabao, was not there. I'm sorry, I'm picking at straws to differentiate these people. It really sucks, and this is no shade to Denise, but somebody had to be at number 5, and unfortunately, it's her. Into the top 4, goddamn, this is stacked. 3 of these people are very obvious names I think you could guess. And then we have my number 4, who is Sash Lian from Survivor Nicaragua. People sleep so hard on the level of dominance Sash had in that pre-merge because people despise Survivor Nicaragua so much. But I'm here to potentially open up people's eyes to the Sash Lian pre-merge game. It was wonderful. And we don't need to talk about what happened afterwards, so this is a win-win for me. He hit the ground running and made an alliance with Nyanka and Brenda, soon expanding that alliance to Purple Kelly and Chase Rice. So bam bam bam, Sash instantly has a majority alliance that he ran on the younger tribe very early on. But that alone wouldn't get somebody into the top 4. What is way more impressive is what he does after the swap. After getting 3 brand new tribe members, Sash was able to weaponize Jane's hatred for Marty to leak that Marty had an idol, a very important tool Sash would be using moving forward. Doing a split vote where Marty infamously held onto his idol and didn't get voted out, which kinda proved to only benefit Sash on this tribe moving forward. With that idol still being a problem, Sash made a deal with Marty that if Marty gave him the idol, he would work with Marty and spare him on the next vote. And then Marty gave Sash the goddamn idol. And then Sash stuck to his word, saving Marty, gaining an ally and an idol in one fell swoop. That sequence of events was so impressive to me that there was no choice but for Sash to be this high. He ran that pre-merge with allies everywhere, while making moves that benefited him and him only. That is what I'm looking for, and it was so close, but on any given day, Sash could have been higher on this list, but at least for today, he's at number 4. Top 3. And this third one is a name I'm sure everybody was waiting for. When you go to every single tribal council in the pre-merge and are the last remaining member of your tribe, that means something. And that something is the third best pre-merge game of all time. Congratulations, Stephanie LaGrossa. And I'll start this right now. Similar to Denise, at least in the early voteouts, I don't think Stephanie was running the game or anything. Ashley and Jeff were both voted out due to medical reasons, and Kim was just like, not good at Survivor. But when the numbers on Oolong got smaller, Stephanie started playing the game, and playing it damn good. Back-to-back tribals with tie votes, but Stephanie was never in danger with those ties, and flipped both times. First on Angie to avoid rocks being drawn, and then the second time cutting a deal with Bobby John if she switched her vote onto James. On paper, it does sound bad to vote out 2 people you were working with on back-to-back tied votes, but when you are on one of the worst tribes in Survivor history, losing challenge after challenge after challenge, at some point, it's simply about surviving and putting yourself in the best position possible. And what happened when they were down to 3? It was between Stephanie and Ibrahim with Bobby John as the swing. The same Bobby John that Stephanie saved twice and cut a deal with. That is self-preservation and got her to be one of the final 2 members of her tribe. If she hadn't flipped to help Bobby John, who knows what happens at either of those tied votes. And there's a very good chance Stephanie is not one of the final 2 members of Oolong, let alone the final member. That is what is so impressive about Stephanie's game. She turned it into a mini merge. She just made it to the next day while setting herself up for the next vote. And she did that better than everybody else, winning fire making against Bobby John and being the last remaining member of her tribe. She outlasted everybody that she could in the pre-merge. And that is impressive in itself. But when you look at the moves made and the journey to get there, Stephanie played a damn good game, and that is top 3 to me. It just is. We have reached the top 2, and there was so much damn thought that went into this top 2 that I went back and forth and back and forth, because their resumes are very similar as far as what was accomplished. Complete dominance of their tribe, keeping their closest allies safe while also keeping themselves safe, and getting other people to do very dumb things to help them out. But there is one factor that put the number 1 person above that number 2, and I'll get to that when I talk about number 1 because I don't want to talk down on my number 2 person's game at all. My number 2 is the best pre-merge game from the new era I've ever seen. Shan from Survivor 41. This one is a lot more recent, so I hope you understand why she's this high on the list and nearly number 1, but I'm going to explain anyways because I'm fascinated by the amount of control she had over everybody. Obviously, what you need to point to is her connection and alliance with Ricard, which was the power duo of that pre-merge. But it didn't start that way. Shan's original closest ally was JD, until she realized JD was a loose cannon after that first tribal. Regardless, at least for the first vote of Sarah, that was Shan's call and Shan's move. Then she slowly backed away from JD as she slowly took out anybody that could potentially help him out with Brad before eventually sniping out JD herself. But not before playing him like a fiddle, getting him to give up his extra vote to show trust, only to send him packing and keeping the extra vote while she's at it. And that was another really impressive thing about Shan. As people were sent out on her tribe, those people trusted Shan with their life, Sarah and JD especially. So she was able to pull off those blindsides while they trusted her and wanted to work with her, which gave her complete power on who would go home and when. And then at the final 3, she managed to even swindle Janine, where she got her to put down the Beware advantage only to go back and swoop it up for herself. Fucking girl boss, what the hell, she's running laps around these people. I will say though, the only flaw I saw with Shan is that she wanted and needed control with 24/7, which is not a bad thing. The number one player on this list was the exact same way. But I think Shan was much closer to losing all of that control by being way too persistent and trying to swindle Ricard to give her the extra vote, and all of that shit. That was really messy, but they still voted out Genie anyway, and they were the last two members of the tribe. It's an insanely impressive pre-merge game. Shan was the main character of the Survivor 41 pre-merge, and I think that's a good sign to show the level of dominance she had on that tribe from start to finish. But it's just not quite the top spot. Saved for a little gremlin that I have to pay some respects to. Shit, I think I got a little ahead of myself and kind of spoiled who the number one pick is. Everybody's favorite, or least favorite, Survivor Gremlin, Russell Hantz in Survivor Heroes vs. Villains is the best pre-merge game I've ever seen. I don't care what your feelings are on Russell or how he's an overrated player because he can't win and whatever. If you're strictly talking pre-merge, which is what I am doing, I can't deny how incredible this game was. And right off the bat, the main reason that tipped the scales in Russell's favor to being the number one spot over Shan is that he faced adversity and overcame that while Shan did not. Again, that's fully my opinion on how I see the game, but I give so much more credibility to somebody who was able to play at both the top and the bottom. If you were at the top the entire time, that's really impressive, but it's a lot easier to play from the top. You're allowed to make mistakes and still clean them up. From the bottom, you have to play a mistake-free game to survive. And Russell not only did that, but he turned into the kingpin. Him, Parvati, and Danielle were on the outs of that oh-so-infamous tribal council, with 6 people eager to take them out. Either him or Parvati will do. But to be able to manipulate Tyson so bad he accidentally votes himself off while Russell gives his idol to Parvati to show that he is a trustworthy ally, all in one swoop, is nothing short of masterful. It just is. That one move and that one moment is what flipped Coach and Jerry over, showing that the grass might be greener on Russell's side. It's not, but he made him feel like it was. And from then on, he had this tribe by the balls, dictating every single vote and voting out whoever he wanted. Rob, gone. Coach, gone. Courtney, gone. Bam, bam, bam. And Russell was able to not only survive, but thrive with his 2 closest allies by his side. He didn't have to sacrifice any of his numbers, strictly took out the enemy's numbers the entire way through. Oh, but we aren't even done there because we still need to discuss that little debacle with JT. Now, I'm not going to give Russell the majority of the credit for this move by JT giving him the idol. Russell didn't plant those seeds or anything. What I am giving Russell credit for, however, is that this guy had options. He could continue to work with the group he had been building the entire game and move forward, or he has a whole new set of friends that will take him in and become a new majority. All of this while he is still in the pre-merge. There are no other words to describe this than impressive and diabolical. And you can talk about how he wasn't exactly great socially with people or how he should have taken out Sandra over Coach, but that's post-merge problems. I don't give a damn about post-merge problems. I'm looking for what you did in the pre-merge. And Russell started from the bottom and became the most dominant pre-merge player I have ever seen. That is my number one, whether you agree with it or not. We've reached the end of the ranking, but we are not done with this video yet. That is my top 10. That's the list. But I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the overall landscape and effects of playing a great pre-merge game. Where does that lead you come merge? Do these players do well, flame out, win? And what is the optimal way to play a pre-merge Survivor game, especially in the modern day? So let's look at the top 10. And for the sake of the argument, I will be removing Marcus and Russell Swan because they didn't actually make it out of the pre-merge, so there's nowhere else for their game to go. Of the top 8 pre-merge Survivor games, in my opinion, the average placement of those 8 players is 3.5, which is pretty fucking good. The worst placement is Shan at 8th place, and the best is Denise, who won. It's also really interesting to add that 6 of these 8 players made it to the final tribal council. But again, of those 6, only 1 of them won. And if we exclude Denise from those other 5 losers, they all received a combined 6 votes to win between 5 people. Just over 1 per person. And that is completely carried by Coach and Austin, each receiving 3 jury votes. Yeah, that's a lot of numbers being thrown at you, but it brings up a really interesting dynamic that I will try my best to explain why it exists. Well, first of all, this shows you that you should not strive to play the greatest pre-merge game of all time, because two things are going to happen. You're either going to be a massive threat because of the game you had just played and get targeted in the merge, or everybody is going to forget and or not really care about what you did in the pre-merge. I think a lot of these people really coasted on what they did in the pre-merge. They played so hard and played so well that to lower their threat level, they faded into the background or tried not to make too many flashy moves. But that only makes you a weaker player that people want to take to the end. It's nearly impossible to dominate a game of Survivor from day 1 to day 39, or day 26, or whatever the fuck they're gonna do for 50. So make it a goal to prioritize the latter half of the game over the early half. That is what wins you Survivor instead of being on the I Am Bean's top 10 list of best pre-merge Survivor games. Or you can be Denise and also win the game, so good shit, girl. Anyways, the point being, the best pre-merge is where you need to survive. Build social bonds with anybody you can and simply just don't get voted out. There's no need to ever go balls to the walls unless your game is on the line. There will always be opportunities in the post-merge. You just have to get there and then play your ass off. Is it boring and not as great TV? Yeah, but it might win you $1 million fucking dollars, which is what all but one of these players were able to do. Which is what just one of all of these people were able to do. Now we've reached the end of the video. This was a fun experiment I wanted to look into and see the true importance of the pre-merge of Survivor, and I hope you all enjoyed too. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, or any of my content, and stick around for plenty more reality TV videos coming very soon. If you love reality TV, you'll love it here, I promise. But for now, that'll do it for me. If you made it to the end of this video, I love ya. Platonically, of course. And I will undoubtedly see ya when I see ya. Bye-bye.